now we're back with Alia Jones-Harvey. Alia, we were talking about financial, commitment and trying to find, which is the biggest part, is getting someone to invest in a place. How do you find benefactors, and at what levels do they come in?
Well, a lot of introductions by people that know people that are interested in theater, looking inside the playbills and seeing who's invested in theater in the past.
Okay.
And then a lot of networking, pounding the pavement, trying to figure out.
Is that like 50% of your job?
Oh yeah, more than that.
More than that?
More than that.
Right.
And then the levels of investment can be anywhere from 50,000 to millions.
Okay.
There's some larger investors that will make larger commitments, and they're investing based on an interest in certain perks.
Okay.
So the investors that are investing at the higher levels, above 250,000, let's say, they are looking for perks like above the title credit.
Okay.
So when you open up your playbill, their names above the title.
Wow.
Those names above the title are eligible for Tony Awards if the play or the musical is so nominated and wins.
Wow.
And so they're investors that, they already have the wherewithal and the capital to do this.
Right.
To invest in Broadway, you need to be an accredited investor, meaning you have to have over $1 million of net worth, of investable net worth. So not your primary home, but investable net worth.
Okay.
So the people that are doing this already have that box checked,
right.
And they're interested in other pursuits, and so credits on a Broadway production, are kind of lead to immortality. I don't know, or you all of a sudden are associated with this show for the rest of time because the shows are being cataloged, of course, and all of these credits, which is similar to the film world when you see the credits run at the end. The person who was the camera grip is waiting to see their name because they know that they had a key part of making
that happen.
This piece of work happen.
Okay.
So there are different levels of credits based on different levels of investment.
Okay.
Which is something that some people are investing for. Others are investing for opening night tickets, to be able to attend an opening night party with the cast and celebrate. Right. To have access to house seats throughout the run of the show.
Okay.
Which means you can purchase tickets when they're all sold out. So you can imagine Hamilton, if you were an investor in Hamilton,
oh my God,
those house seats that you have access to are pretty coveted.
Yes.
And
so big time, big money maker. So
yes.
What's the typical turnaround of when you invest and then seeing the benefit and seeing the rewards and when you start making your money back?
Okay, so it depends on what type of vehicle it is. Okay. If it's a revival of a play, so that's the most compact time horizon for investment, because with a revival, you already know what the script is.
Right.
Generally, you have star casting, so you have an actor that says, I want to revive this role in this play, and so you can promote a title that people know, you can promote a star that people know, and the idea is that hopefully you will sell tickets, to the show. So the investment horizon there can be as little as 6 months.
Oh, okay.
So I'll give an example of A Streetcar Named Desire or Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. So the investors came in December. We were in rehearsals in January.
Okay.
We opened in March.
Wow.
and we closed in June.
Okay.
So with play revivals, you generally have a limited engagement, meaning the star only committed to 12 weeks, 16 weeks. Mm-hmm. So that's the length of time that you rent out the theater.
Okay.
And so that limited run happens, and then the investment, if the show made money, the investment comes back. So you can see that was a 7-month time horizon for that investment, less than a year.
Okay.
Which is different from the film industry. It might take 5-10 years before you see anything. But in theater, it's pretty immediate for that scenario. Okay. Now, if you're talking about a new musical,
like a Hamilton.
Like a Hamilton.
Yeah.
The years, so I think Lin-Manuel Miranda talked about it taking 6 years for him to write the script, the book, and then there's so much collaboration that goes into a musical. You have the book writer, the lyricist, then you have the choreographer, the director, all of the designers that get involved. That it takes a much longer time to develop the piece that you're actually going to present.
Okay.
So the time horizon for a musical can be closer to what the film world looks like.
Okay. So for you, do you guys try to stick with short run
revivals? We started there. We did 4 revivals, and then Paramore was our first musical. And we weren't the lead producers on Paramore. Cirque du Soleil was. Okay. So it was just an opportunity for us to observe how the process unfolds because we're developing a musical ourselves now. So we're knee deep in what that means.
So you guys are still learning everything about the
every
business,
day,
every day, and what's going on behind the scenes. And as we know, as they say, Broadway is a business and it's show business. How do you separate from artistic to the business side? Are you involved in the artistic side at all? Do you get to say, you know what, I want Felicia Rashad or I want Debbie Allen, I want them to be my lead, and then you go down from there, How does that come about? What's that planning like?
So we consider ourselves creative producers. There are some producers that are not creative producers. They're strictly business. We consider ourselves creative producers. We want to have some input and offer our opinions on the creative side. All of that said, once we hire a director, so producer as CEO, once we hire a director, the director is really the CEO of all of the creative decisions on a production.
Okay.
So we are collaborating with the director in each of these productions to say, oh yes, Felicia Rashad, she would be perfect for this, role, But that initial conversation with the director, you've got to get on the same page with the director that's going to bring your work to life, because they are going to make all of those creative decisions about who's going to be the lighting designer and who's going to do the costumes and who's going to design the set. And it's all tied into their vision as the director. So the director choice is key. It's critical to the success.
Do y'all work with the same director on most plays, or y'all try to switch it up? How does that come about?
We haven't worked with the same director twice yet. Each of the plays that we've lead produced, we've had some amazing female directors, I have to say. We started with Debbie Allen. Emily Mann directed Streetcar. And then we moved over to Michael Wilson, who directed The Trip to Bountiful.
That was an excellent play.
He is the expert on Horton Foote. So for him to direct a Horton Foote piece made sense.
Right.
We're looking forward to working with directors that are prominent on Broadway that we haven't had an opportunity to work with yet. But each time it's been different.
And since you've been in the business for 7 years, 8 years, 7, 8 years?
Now it's 10.
10 years, okay, 10 years.
Well, 10 since Cat opened.
Okay, since Cat opened. Do African-American actresses and actors come to you with stories and ideas knowing that you are the only 2 African-Americans in the field? So
Yes.
has that made your job easier?
Easier, no.
Okay.
No, not easier. But they do come to us with, I get scripts all the time.
Okay.
In my inbox, and I'm generally I'm curious. You know, Eclipsed with Lupita Nyong'o was our first new play.
Okay.
So we'd done all these revivals.
Right.
Then we did our first new play. And after that, the floodgates opened, and now we get a lot of plays in the mail.
Okay. All right. Because how do you curate your other stories? Do you just look for playwrights? Do you do anything? Are y'all thinking about, okay, this is the revival I want to revive. This is what we want to do. Do you have like creative day, business day? You know, how does your day look? You know, how's a typical day for Alia look?
The typical day. Well, okay, so to answer the first question, it doesn't generally unfold like that. It's generally a lot of connections.
Okay.
So in the case of Lupita doing Eclipsed, she tried out for Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, okay.
And decided not to do Romeo and Juliet. This was right before 12 Years a Slave was going to open in theaters.
Okay.
So after Romeo and Juliet happened on Broadway, we were in a conversation about doing it on the West End. We were in a conversation with Orlando Bloom, who had starred as the Romeo. We were in a conversation about doing Romeo and Juliet on the West End, and talked to her about it. She said, I'm not interested in that, but I'm interested in this play, Eclipsed.
Okay.
And we said, okay, that's interesting. You know, it's a new play. I read it. I was engaged and intrigued by the story. It was written really well. Denai Guerrera wrote the play. I'd seen her work in the past at the McCarter in New Jersey at Princeton. And so I was intrigued by the work. I was intrigued by the playwright. The fact that Lupita Nyong'o, being who she was, you know, being who she was at the time and who she is now. The fact that she was backing it, all of those things made it interesting, something to look at, you know. But then we got a phone call from Oscar Eustis at the Public.
Okay.
And Lupita had been courting him as well with the play.
Wow.
So it turns out that she had understudied this play at Yale.
At Yale, right? Because she's theater.
And she never got to go. She's theater trained, and she never got to go on. She never got to actually play the role. So she kept it.
And that was one of the things.
She kept it close. You know, she kept it like, I'm going to do this one day. And so sure enough, we're given the opportunity. That's what happened. So for us to do our first new play, it took all of those things coming together.
Wow,
You know, and then Oscar saying, okay, we'll start it at the Public.
Okay.
We'll build up, you know, an audience for it, and we'll get reviews, and we'll develop it at the Public. And that made it much easier for us to transfer it to Broadway.
Wow, okay. Is there a difference of doing a play in the London West End and Broadway, or is it basically the same?
There's some similarities, but different. So, of course, on the investment side, you have to deal with the currency exchange and setting up the structure of the companies in a way that is beneficial for U.S. investors that are looking at investing in a West End show. And then if you're bringing on British investors, UK investors, creating a vehicle for them to invest. But the audiences... So here, if we're doing an all African-American production of a play, we're targeting a certain audience.
Okay.
There, the audiences are much more distributed. So figuring out the pockets of people to target and how to get to them was a challenge that we met. I think that the theater owners, which the structure there is similar, that there are a few theater owners that own all of the theaters. but the theater owners were pleasantly surprised. They did a study after we did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof on the West End and found that 78% of the ticket buyers were new to the West End.
Wow.
So there were people that had enjoyed theater off West End. They'd been going to the local theaters, but hadn't been drawn to anything on the West End until we did a Black version of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof on the West End.
Yeah.
And it drew in people from Ireland, it drew in people from France. There were people coming from all over Europe that heard about this, that were coming to see that show. So when we won we got no Tony nominations for Cat on Broadway, but when we went over to the West End, we won the Olivier Award. It was like, this is incredible, So
well, it just lets you know this. We have so many stories to tell, and people are, thirsting for our stories, all over the globe, and so therefore, all this misnomer of, we can't sell, tickets is, totally not true. Totally not true. Of all the productions that you've done, what's been your favorite and why?
Oh, that's so hard. So I have things that I love about all of them. I'd have to say that Eclipsed, I think, was the most impactful because it was dealing with, first of all, that we had an all-female cast.
Okay.
We had a female director, female playwright. That was new to Broadway. So at each step, we've been breaking ground in some way, which I think is a part of our mission. But the fact that this all-female team was leading this production, and then the storyline, the subject matter, was so important and unfamiliar for American audiences to see what life was like in a Liberian camp and these captive women, and then to see that they built community much like anyone else would build community under the most extreme circumstances. And so it was the most important in that for me, and my favorite to work on for that reason. We ended up, I initiated a campaign called 10,000 Girls to bring 10,000 young women who'd not been to a Broadway show to the theater.
Okay.
The first group that came in was from the Department of Homeless Services.
Wow.
And these girls talked about how similar their situation was to the women that were being depicted on stage.
Wow.
And then they were so excited to see women of color on stage, because of course this group was very diverse, and there were young women from all walks of life who were there. So that's been the most, I think, life-changing for me, that experience.
I can see why. Now with Lupita and being able to have a relationship with her, and now with all her success, Black Panther, the Eclipse and everything like that, is she drawn back to you guys, looking to develop more plays based on the fact that she is a Yale graduate and theater is her thing?
I don't know. I don't know if Lupita is going to come back to Broadway. We shall see.
You don't think so?
I know that Denai is still writing plays. She had a play off Broadway that was running at the same time as Eclipse. Eclipse.
Okay.
So imagine the two of them, because Denai and Lupita ended up in Black Panther.
Yes.
But what's funny is Ryan Coogler came to see our show multiple times.
Wow.
So
it's there. Yeah, you got to talk.
So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if Lupita comes back.
Okay, you should reach out to her. I think that's a major production. I see it.
Yeah, well.
I see it. Okay, let's talk about what you got coming up.
Okay.
What's coming up? What's next for you?
So we have come on board as co-producers on Scott Rudin's production of Iceman Cometh, starring Denzel Washington.
All right.
That's opening in this season, the very last day to qualify for this
Tony.
season.
Give the audience the dates of the Tony season, of when you like Broadway. When is the season? What's the dates?
Well, the season is in May to end of April.
Okay, all right.
Every year.
Every year, okay.
And so this coming, we're coming up on the end of the 2017-2018 season.
Okay.
And after that, then the following week there'll be, Tony nomination announcements, and then there'll be a month of vigorous campaigning for the Tonys, and then the new season will kick off.
Okay.
But with Iceman Cometh being one of our focal points this season, we're also participating as co-producers in Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations, which had an amazing run at the Berkeley Repertory Theater and is now going to the Kennedy Center in June, and then the Amundsen in Los Angeles in September, and then the Prince of Wales Theater in Toronto in November, and finally coming to Broadway. All right. So those two are coming up in the near term, but I mentioned that we're developing a musical of Black Orpheus.
That I can't wait to see. When I saw that, I was just like, I can't wait to see that.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Lynn Nottage, Pulitzer Prize winner, who recently won her second Pulitzer for Sweat, is writing the book for this. George Wolfe is directing. Daryl Waters is composing and supervising the music for this production. So we are in the development process right now. We're very excited to get that on stage as soon as we can.
Are you looking for investors?
Yes.
That sounds good.
Absolutely looking for investors.
Okay, out there, everybody see Alia. For someone coming up and getting, some young African American kids see you and they come to you. I bet you speak all the time on panels and different stuff. What's your best advice if someone wants to get in this field? Because for you, it came organically. It was almost like, the world paved its way. You went and got the foundation, and then it just came back to you, which I love, because I just think sometimes things are meant to happen and you're living your purpose. So for someone who's out here and who's trying to do this, what's your best advice for them?
Well, I think that, someone who says, how can I become a producer? You just produce. You just do it. And there are no steps to doing it other than you have an idea, you go about getting an option for a piece, you option the work, you have to control some portion of an intellectual property before you go out and solicit people to invest in an idea. So you want to have something tangible, right? So usually it's an option from the playwright for the work, or from the estate of the playwright for the work. But the other thing I think that is a key piece of advice that I would give that I've learned along the way is that coming into the industry as a producer is not necessarily the only way to get there. And if I had it to do all over again, I would probably come in as on the general management track. The general managers, so if the producer's the CEO, the general manager's the COO. And they are running the show. But the thing is that the general manager has multiple shows. So they're seeing the landscape, they're dealing with vendors, more directly than the producers are. And so, they have a vantage point and get to learn the inside of the industry. Also, when you're not producing work, it's great to be able to go back and do something tied to the industry. So you could general manage someone else's play if you're not producing your own work at the time. So I would definitely, I would definitely give that advice. Like, think of the general management track, and general management track is available, you know, throughout the country at theaters throughout the country.
All right. Well, the last question: how do you love the way you live?
Oh, I love living in New York. I love, so we've only done Broadway and West End productions, so I have to live in New York in order to do that.
Right.
But I love being a part of the atmosphere here. Seeing theater is, I think, the biggest treat of being a part of this business. I see every new show that comes to Broadway every year as a Tony voter. So I feel really blessed that I have this opportunity to do this and to make an impact on how Broadway is going to change and develop and grow over time. So
all right.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this is your purpose?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like this is a theme with many of your podcasts, because I've heard several that you know, it's a journey to finding the thing that is going to get you up every day excited. And so finding this has definitely been wonderful for me. To find something that is combining all of my skill sets and exciting and thrilling, challenging, all of that. So.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank you, Alia Jones-Harvey, for coming in today and talking to us. You guys will be able to find all of Alia's information on my website at lovethewayyoulivelyc.com. And until next time, celebrate life and love the way you live.